can tell you is that multiple ex-partners of Charlie Sheen came forward via text messages and in one case a video recording in which they all confirmed that they were exposed to HIV, and they spoke of their horror at potentially being infected with this virus.
All my hooker numbers are in that phone.
Sheen, who was at one time the highest paid actor on TV, earning close to $2 million an episode on the hit show 2.5 Men, once estimated he'd slept with 5,000 people. In 1995, he admitted to spending tens of thousands of dollars on prostitutes. And in a 2011 interview with ABC News, he talked openly about why he enjoyed the company of prostitutes and porn stars.
They're the best at what they do, and I'm the best at what I do, and together it's like, it's on. Sorry, middle America. He's not lying to people. I think whatever you do and there's no children involved, then you're okay.
According to the National Enquirer, Sheen has known about the diagnosis for several years. And the tabloid also says the actor, reportedly worth $125 million, has faced a number of lawsuits and paid millions to protect his secret.
Many of those women have sought legal counsel and successfully sought settlements with Charlie Sheen as a result of their exposure.
A source close to the situation tells ABC News that his ex-wife, actress Denise Richards, does not have HIV and neither do their children, adding that he was infected at some point after their divorce in 2006. Sheen has 3 ex-wives and 5 children. In that NBC News interview, Sheen also says that he does not think he exposed any of his partners to the virus. The Enquirer's full article comes out tomorrow, and it's important to note that while HIV is hardly a death sentence these days, legally you are required to tell your partners if you know that you have HIV. Yeah.
Okay, and Bremner, 2 things. Now, as you heard the clip, they said it, but what is the situation now? If Charlie Sheen has HIV, what kind of law is it that he is charged with if he doesn't tell his partner?
Well, in California, it's a felony for anyone with HIV to engage in unprotected sexual activity when the infected person knows at the time of the unprotected sex that they're infected with HIV and they don't disclose it. So there's some language that talks about that they act with specific, intent to infect. But there's also a lot of other statutes that you can deal with, civil cases you can deal with, some kind of, it wouldn't be attempted homicide, but there's now specific statutes that deal with infliction of a disease like AIDS or HIV. And I know HIV is a virus that leads to AIDS, and it may not be a death sentence, but the fact of the matter, if you don't tell your partner, and I have heard and seen in the news that there are 6 women that have come forward, and some of this is tabloid, right, but there's at least 6 that have come forward.
There's plenty more.
Oh my gosh, yes. And the two goddesses, remember from 2011 when he had his meltdown,
right,
those 2 are saying they lived with him for a year and he never said he was infected, and they had sex with them daily. So in my view, I mean, he's in a world of hurt. I don't know why he went on the Today Show. If I was advising him as a lawyer, I would have told him not to do that, because he's now said to everybody that he's HIV positive. He knows it, he knew it, and it's been a number of years.
Right, you're just making it clear. You're just getting your name in the spotlight again.
Right.
And he has no problem, it seems, with that. What did you think of him actually bringing on a doctor? He could have been a feel-good doctor, if you know what I mean. I mean,
well,
nowadays,
he testified in the OJ trial.
Did he really? So
yeah,
he is a world-renowned doctor.
Well,
right.
He testified in OJ.
For the dollar bill, though, as you know, and being a trial attorney, there are doctors, I'm not saying this one did, that will go and testify, but let alone a little Today Show interview comparing under oath. He could have been saying a lot of things that were very positive for Charles. Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, sure, and keeping in mind that the 2 goddesses, one of I know is named Brie Olson, I'm forgetting the name of the other, but
right.
Charlie Sheen is saying,
I think she was on Howard Stern.
Yeah, she was on Howard Stern, but Charlie Sheen is saying, I wasn't HIV positive when they lived with me. And they're coming back and saying, at least one of them is saying he had the night sweats, he had all of the symptoms he's describing now is attributable to HIV. Now, turning to the doctor, I see the doctor has appeared on television on The Biggest Loser. He testified in the O.J. Simpson trial. Maybe it's because he's in Los Angeles that, he has, or he's Hollywood, that has these types of connections. However, it's a good thing to bring on the doctor to talk about transmission, to talk about treatment, to talk about whether Charlie Sheen is taking it seriously, and to talk about, what HIV is versus full-blown AIDS. On the other hand, he's on his payroll, and I think you look at that as well. I don't know anything about this doctor one way or the other, except for that I think Sheen brought him on the air to say, A, the virus is not detectable right now in his blood, and B, he's not seeing, I think I'm paraphrasing, but he's not seeing a high risk of contagion in his case, and C, that he had talked to some of Charlie's sexual partners, or at least had transmitted information to them in some way. So, I guess it's always good to have a doctor sitting with you, right?
Yes, and a lawyer.
Right, and a lawyer, exactly. You're right.
But don't you find it interesting that when you hear it from like Charlie Sheen or the kid from Who's the Boss, when you hear it from the kid from Who's the Boss or Magic Johnson, it seems like the people of court opinion, they're more liking like the Magic Johnson than the kid from Who's the Boss. They're rooting them on. Let's go. The feeling I get in talking to a lot of people with Charlie Sheen, and who cares about him? He's doing unprotected sex and this and that. He's full of drugs. He has such a checkered past. I mean,
right.
What do you think about that?
Well, I kind of look at this and I think, it's one thing, and also Heather Locklear and other people, tweeting out support. Sure, support somebody that is in harm's way, that has a bad thing that happened, that's standing up for, himself and for others in the same situation and showing bravery. Sure. However, this is a case where he said he slept with scores, hundreds, thousands of women. I don't know, what he's done, but it's the meth, it's the other drugs, it's the, promiscuity. It's 6 women saying, that they had unprotected sex with him. So it's a different scenario. Is he Bill Cosby? Probably not. But, this is potentially death. And I think everyone needs to take a look at this case and say, really? I mean, sure, we support people with HIV. We want awareness about HIV. This is a terrible situation, to have anybody in, and it's horrible to stigmatize anybody with HIV or AIDS. But let's also look at other people in this case that are saying, wait a minute, I'm out in the press now because of what he said, and I didn't even know. I'm scared, those kinds of things. He's got concomitant damage, and he's apparently not been honest, or they're not being honest.
Yeah, I mean, and you bring up Bill Cosby, and look at how many women he allegedly raped. I mean,
right.
I think the women that came forward, and it could be triple that amount, is 50. So you have 50 women that he had sex with in some kind of way.
Right.
It's quite possible he could have had it to somebody. Would you agree?
Right. Yeah, right. And the thing is, I had a case in Seattle many, many years ago. It was one of the first cases when I was a prosecutor that somebody was believed to have HIV, and he was interacting with juvenile male prostitutes, as I remember, at least kids that lived on the street. And there was still that, push and pull about stigma versus, prosecution versus victimization. And I think we have to all be responsible and say that you need, if you are in a situation and you know it, and he's worth millions of dollars, then you at least use a condom. At least tell people so they have a choice. At least say, I've got it. You know what I mean? I mean, it's so basic, that I can't believe that there's some kind of this controversy. Sure, people support him, but I think they're looking at law enforcement is looking at charging him potentially if enough women stick to their guns. I think a lot of women don't want to come forward and be in the spotlight in this case.
Right, and he's not 80 years old like Bill Cosby. He's only in his 50s, right?
He's 50 here, 50 now. He turned 50 this year, and I think
so he's
that
relatively young.
Yeah, 50's young, King. As far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely, you can't, hide behind your mansion, your millions, and your doctors and your lawyers and the media and everything else. How is he different than anybody else that would do something like that if he did?
I mean, and I would think a prosecutor would have no problem bringing charges if he had credible evidence.
Exactly.
That the prosecutor should.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, and I also think that you know media, you work with media, but when the Inquirer came out on Monday, then of course we see him going on Today's Show. We didn't see him coming out until it was out there. And I finally say one more thing on this case. Nobody should be extorted. He shouldn't be in a position where he paid $10 million here or, you know, whatever else. That was quite a life he led, and I bet it was horrible to be constantly fearful and paying money to make sure nobody said anything.
Yeah, but you said one interesting thing there. You said, you know, the life he lived, you know, he chose to live that kind of life. And when you're going to live that kind of life, you're going to find yourself in these situations.
Right. And
you would agree?
If these 6 women are credible, and you know what, I was an old prosecutor. If 6 women came forward to me as victims, I think there's strength in numbers. I mean, there's 6 women. I know there's money there and everything else.
What does 50 do for Bill Cosby?
I know. No, that's real strength in numbers, King. But, you know, I don't know the credibility
that's an
issues.
army.
But, right. It definitely gives you pause. In Charlie's case, needs a lot more pause in Bill Cosby's case with the numbers.
No question about it. Okay, we're following another trial. A teenager at 14 killed and raped his teacher. Here is the background, and we'll talk on the other side.
Massachusetts prosecutors are set to begin the trial of 16-year-old Philip Chisholm, who is charged with raping and murdering a popular teacher at his suburban high school 2 years ago. Chisholm is being tried as an adult in the murder of Colleen Ritzer. Chisholm followed Ritzer into the bathroom after school, raped her, and cut her throat with a box cutter. She was a beloved 24-year-old teacher at his high school in Danvers, Massachusetts. Defense attorneys are expected to mount an insanity defense to account for his actions when he was a 14-year-old freshman.
Okay, and this is, he was 14 at the time of this allegedly happening. How could you, and you were just going off power, that's one crazy thing. This is, crazy, I mean, not as bad in terms of numbers, but a 14-year-old raping and killing a teacher?
I know.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Well,
I mean,
Carol,
what's the best you could do for this if you're a defense attorney?
Well, what they're doing, which is the insanity defense, but he's on, as you know, he's on surveillance video. You know, he's caught right after the fact, you know, with the box cutter, and he's got the blood on him. Even in the surveillance, you can see the blood on his hand. You know, he's got gloves, you know, everything else. It's just, you know, you see her, it's so, you know, horrific as she's going to the bathroom. There's surveillance showing her smiling and walking down the hallway, completely oblivious to the, you know, the danger that's awaiting her within probably seconds, if not minutes, from this, you know, 14-year-old. He's 16 now, of course, and
right.
and all they're going to be able to do is try and say that, you know, he was very disturbed. You know, he shouldn't, and he's being tried as an adult. So they're just basically trying to say, and I think it might resonate with some people, is how in the heck can a 14-year-old do this in their right mind? You know,
yeah, I mean,
that's about all.
That is nuts. I mean, when you're 14, I mean, it's horrible just to think about it. But how do they determine, and you're a lawyer, so you could speak to this, if he should be tried as an adult? Is it the crime itself?
That's part of it. What they basically look at, well, there's some crimes for which there's an automatic decline, and what decline means is you're declined from juvenile jurisdiction in favor of the adult system. So they call it a decline hearing. Some are automatic if it's like a murder one and they're close to 18 at the time. That's kind of an simplification of it. But generally what they look at is, you know, how serious is the crime? You know, are there mental issues with the child? Is there a likelihood that treatment in the juvenile system will help them in a way that they can't be helped in the adult system? They look at their criminal history. They've been in trouble before. You know, has there been kind of escalating criminal behavior? And then they basically look at a comparison on security and other issues in the two systems, because the juvenile justice system, you know, does have a juvie prison, so to speak. They have kind of a detention and jail, but they've got a long-term facility in most jurisdictions. It's like a prison, but they're only held in that quote-unquote juvie prison until they're 21. So I think a lot of cases like this one, you know, the courts, and a court makes this decision, usually unless it's an automatic decline, the court makes a decision and says, you know what, this kid, man, you don't want him out at 21, right? I mean, it's like, that's really scary. Look what he did. I mean, he slits her throat, he rapes her, he kills her, he's all on video, and then he